The following video includes topics such as sexual harassment/abuse and mental illness. Viewer discretion is advised. Sexual harassment. It seems to be a topic that people fail to acknowledge and give as much attention as it needs. Although it is talked about more often nowadays, it is still quite neglected, and I feel as if we were to teach, starting with the younger generation, we could stop future problems and future cases, and numbers shall decrease. Statistics show 1 in 5 women and 1 in 71 men get raped at some point in their lives. 91% of rape and sexual assault victims are female and 9% are male. In the U.S. alone, 1 in 3 women and 1 in 6 men experience some form of sexual violence in their lifetime. In 8 out of 10 cases of rape, the victim knew the perpetrator. 51.1% of female victims reported being raped by an intimate partner. 40.8% reported being raped by an acquaintance. 52.4% of male victims report being raped by an acquaintance, while 15.1% report being raped by a random person or a stranger. These statistics show that women are most likely to get raped more than men, but men can also be raped and sexually abused, but in rare cases. 1 in 4 girls and 1 in 6 boys will be sexually abused before they turn 18 years old. 30% of women were between the ages of 11 and 17 at the time of their first completed rape. 12.3% of women were aged 10 or younger at the time of their first complete rape victimization. 27.8% of men were aged 10 or younger at the time of their first completed rape victimization. More than 1/3 of women who report being raped before age 18 also experience rape as an adult. 96% of people who sexually abuse children are male, and 76.8% of the people who sexually abuse children are adults. 34% of people who sexually abuse a child are family members of the child. It is estimated that 325,000 children per year are currently at the risk of becoming victims of commercial child sexual exploitation. The average age at which girls first become victims of prostitution is 12 to 14 years old, and the average age at which boys first become victims of prostitution is 11 to 13 years old. Only 12% of child abuse is ever reported to the authorities. Thankfully, I was able to interview some wonderful people who volunteered to be in my video, but shall remain anonymous.
How did you meet the abuser? Well, the abuser, I've known him since I was a baby practically. And it's not really meeting, but he is family, basically.
Didn't really meet the abuser because he's always been part of my family, so he's just kinda there all the time.
What age did you first meet them, if you remember? Well, I met them when I was a baby, but I started to remember them when I was about 6 years old.
I feel like the first time that I recall seeing him for the first time was maybe when I was 4 years old.
When did it become more than just friends? Well, this person wasn't really a friend, but he was like a friend to me, and became more than what it was supposed to be at approximately 7 years old.
When did it become more than just friends? Well, I don't think we never became more than just friends. We always just had a uncle and niece relationship.
Did it affect how you feel towards yourself? Well, it affected me a lot how I felt towards myself. At a very young age, so about 7 years old, I've been depressed and I've hated myself ever since I was 6, basically, and it was really hard for me because why would a 6-year-old hate themselves so much? And like why would people make you feel like that's all your fault when it's not your fault at all?
Did it affect the way you feel towards yourself? Yeah, in a way, but I feel like I got over it because I knew it wasn't my fault. So I got over the negative feelings that I had towards myself.
Do you trust the gender or group of those type of people anymore? Um, I don't anymore. It's really hard for me to trust that gender and that group of people anymore because I'm not around family anymore. Mm-hmm. I don't allow myself to be around them. They don't come around me, and we're just separated now because of the incident. And ever since then, ever since everyone found out what's happened to me, nobody's spoken about it. Everyone acts like it didn't happen, and it's really sad to see that because everyone makes you pretend like you're okay all the time, but you're not.
Do you trust the gender or group of those type of people anymore? No. I mean, no, not really. It makes me so uncomfortable to be around older guys. Really uncomfortable.
How has this situation emotionally affected you? Well, I became a very angry person, and I could never control my feelings. Ever since I was a little girl, I would have tantrums. I would rage out, and I would really physically hurt people because I did not like being touched at all. So if a person touched me, I would fight. And I would probably start yelling and crying, and I was always angry, and that's why I started becoming more into like drugs and drinking at a very young age, just probably around 12 years old, because I was an angry person, and people always wondered, why is this girl so angry? But they never asked. They just assumed that I was just a bad person. But this is the reason why I was so angry.
I feel like the situation didn't really emotionally affect me. I mean, I was really shocked, but to this point, I haven't felt anything about it. All I feel is shock. Shock that he would do something like that, but not really. I haven't been sad or angry about it. I'm just in shock still.
Is there certain things you can't do anymore? Certain things that I can't do anymore. I don't like it when people I don't really know touch me at all. I don't like it when people touch me at all. It's very hard for me to give hugs to friends and stuff because it's it reminds me of certain things, and it doesn't really help me. And another thing I really can't do is I can't sleep sometimes because of it. I can't sleep, and I can't function the next day because sometimes I have dreams, and the dreams are just as bad as when I'm actually awake. So it's hard for me to sleep a lot, so sometimes I won't sleep at all.
Is there certain things you can't do anymore? No, I mean, I still do everything that I used to do. The only thing that I wouldn't be able to do is be around him.
And lastly, have you ever spoke out about this before? Well, I've spoken out about this before only to a few certain people that have felt the same way I have. And there's been times where I would tell my mom, my dad, and my brother, and I would help out some of my friends that I know who have been hurt like this. And yeah, I try my best to help other people, even though it hurts me when I talk about it. Still, even if people think that since it's been so long ago that it won't hurt you because you're older now, but it always affects you and affects the way you treat other people.
Yeah, I spoke about this before to two of my friends. That's all.
Now that we know a little bit about what happens to victims, I will be giving you some facts on more things that can happen to victims after sexual abuse. One of the very common aftermaths a person who is sexually abused or assaulted or harassed faces is depression. There are many emotional and psychological reactions that victims of rape and sexual assault can experience, and the most common one seems to be depression. Another one is flashback. During a flashback, memories of past traumas feel as if they are taking place in the current moment, therefore giving the person an attack. Another thing could be post-traumatic stress disorder. After a traumatic event, it is typical to have feelings of anxiety, stress, or fear, making it difficult to adjust or cope for some time afterwards. These things could be lifelong, or they could be temporary. It depends on how the victim deals with it. One of the things the victim can do to themselves is self-harm. Self-harm is usually inflicted by the victim thinking that it's their fault or they could have stopped it. Therefore, they want to hurt themselves to feel it as a punishment. Another thing that could happen is an STI or an STD. A sexually transmitted infection is a bacterial or viral infection passed from one person to another through vaginal, anal, or oral contact. Another thing could be substance abuse. Substance abuse could be as in they're addicted to drugs or alcohol, usually alcohol, to the point where it's unhealthy. Another thing could be dissociation. They could just dissociate from family, friends. They could just not focus in conversations during things, just separate themselves. Another thing is eating disorders. Sexual violence can affect survivors in many ways, including perceptions of the body and feelings of control. Another thing could be if you were recently raped, you may have concerns about becoming pregnant from the attack, so pregnancy. Could also be sleep disorders. They often have nightmares or trouble falling asleep out of fear of it happening again or just being used to it happening around that time. Another thing could be suicide. Suicide is often caused because they have no will to live anymore. They feel like all their power was taken away from them. Therefore, they just want to end it and not continue on. Sexual harassment leads back into time, back into Roman times. Just so many years pass. And it just proves to show that no matter what a person wears, they could still get sexually harassed. Like literally Muslim women who cover up still get sexually abused. There's tons in numbers. What we need to teach people is that it's not about what the woman or man, usually woman, wear. It's not because she was asking for it. No one asks to get forcefully abused in any sort of way. We also need to teach our kids from a young age to respect each other, and that hair pulling and punching and kicking a girl is not a way of flirting, and it isn't supposed to be just boys being boys or just because he likes you. No, that should not be acceptable in any way. I'm not saying that this is gonna solve everything, because there's still, even if we do this, there still might be people who still do the wrong thing, but maybe it could decrease the numbers. Maybe it could just do one little difference. Even if it's just 1% of a difference, it's that much better. And so I think we need to start from the root of the problem, which is letting women wear what they want and telling men to control themselves. Like, don't send girls home for wearing a spaghetti strap just because the boy is distracted. Send the boy home. Tell him to teach him some manners, and tell him to just focus on what he needs to focus and not what a girl is wearing, and that just because he's distracted doesn't mean the girl has to change what she wants to wear just for him. Like I said, it's little things that could build up to multiple things of being okay. Like, who knows, just because in high school that boy who got away with catcalling girls or being like, ooh, you look feisty in that short dress, or I like how that dress looks on you, and just doing uncomfortable flirts, maybe he one day will become a rapist. You don't know. I just think that the problem needs to be solved from the beginning with little things so the end could be prevented, so nothing big can happen. In conclusion, we need to teach our kids to respect each other, and as adults or teens or whatever age you are, respect each other and learn to stop trying to blame another person for your actions.